have a choice. People don't feel like going to the stadium when they might get infected.
We have a choice not to listen to you. And to be honest with you, they say that nobody's above the law. Why is this dude still breathing? This dude should have been executed for cruelty to humanity.
It's not the government who's saying, okay, just ignore this disease. And, people are deeply affected by seeing these deaths, by knowing they could be part of the transmission chain, and old people, their parents, their grandparents could be affected by this. And so you don't you don't get to say, ignore what's going on here. There will be the ability, particularly in rich countries, to open up if things are done well over the next few months. But for the world at large, normalcy only returns when we largely vaccinated the entire global population. And so you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. You don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. People.
So I've been searching Instagram for a bit, and it seems like no one really talks about this, but around 4 years ago I discovered this website that basically exposes the rampant corruption in the stock market that happens every day, and it allows you to make money off of it. First,
why this caused so much harm in so many different ways because of biodistribution.
If we don't demand that people be held accountable for what we done been through, we are as stupid as they taught us to be.
Take a vaccine. The vaccine is never safe enough for me to take. Messenger RNA devised by Pfizer and Moderna has been chemically modified to be unassailable to enzymes in the body to be broken down. The messenger RNA is found in the human heart of people who die after the vaccine. It's found in the brain. The spike protein is found everywhere in the body. 3 studies now show the spike protein is circulating in the blood for 6 to 9 months after people take the shot. This part of the virus, the lethal part of the virus in the vaccinated, is circulating in the blood. And then they take a booster, they get more circulating in the blood. It is a killer protein. It cannot be safe. It was not safe by design. Safety trumps efficacy. We cannot tolerate false drug claims. And we saw a poster behind Senator Blumenthal making a false drug claim that vaccines saved millions of lives, specifically the COVID vaccine. Well, let's take a look at that. When someone signs consent for a vaccine, Senator Blumenthal, does the consent form say it's going to save their lives? Of course it doesn't. It's not on the FAQ. There's never been a prospective, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial ever showing that COVID-19 vaccines reduce mortality or hospitalization. There's not even a valid non-randomized study. Thankfully, COVID mortality went down for 3 reasons. Because we all got the infection, vaccinated and unvaccinated, so we developed population natural immunity. We developed early treatment. Credit to Operation Warp Speed. We used all the Operation Warp Speed tools, additional drugs. We treated patients with multi-drug protocols at home so they don't go to the ER. So Governor Green never saw the patients we treated because they were successfully treated at home. And the third reason is that the virus mutated to a much milder form. Those things happen concurrently with rollout of the vaccine. The vaccine cannot be falsely credited with saving millions of lives. We can't allow false drug advertising to be put up on a poster behind one of our public servants. We cannot accept that.
So let me quickly say why this caused so much harm in so many different ways because of the biodistribution. Dr. McCullough.
80% of Americans took a vaccine. 20% didn't. 20% did not take a vaccine. The vaccine was never safe enough for me to take. Messenger RNA, devised by Pfizer and Moderna, has been chemically modified to be unassailable to enzymes in the body to be broken down. The messenger RNA is found in the human heart of people who die after the vaccine. It's found in the brain. The spike protein is found everywhere in the body. 3 studies now show the spike protein is circulating in the blood for 6 to 9 months after people take the shot. This part of the virus, the lethal part of the virus in the vaccinated, is circulating in the blood. And then they take a booster, they get more circulating in the blood. It is a killer protein. It cannot be safe. It was not safe by design. Safety trumps efficacy. We cannot tolerate false drug claims. And we saw a poster behind Senator Blumenthal making a false drug claim that vaccines saved millions of lives, specifically the COVID vaccine. Well, let's take a look at that. When someone signs consent for a vaccine, Senator Blumenthal, does the consent form say it's going to save their lives? Of course it doesn't. It's not on the FAQ. There's never been a prospective, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial.
We was lied to, and someone needs to be held accountable.
Reduce mortality or hospitalization. There's not even a valid non-randomized study. Thankfully, COVID mortality went down for 3 reasons. Because we all got the infection, vaccinated and unvaccinated, so we developed population natural immunity. We developed early treatment. Credit to Operation Warp Speed. We used all the Operation Warp Speed tools, additional drugs. We treated patients with multi-drug protocols at home so they don't go to the ER. So Governor Green never saw the patients we treated because they were successfully treated at home. And the third reason is that the virus mutated to a much milder form. Those things happen concurrently with rollout of the vaccine. The vaccine cannot be falsely credited with saving millions of lives. We can't allow false drug advertising to be put up on a poster behind one of our public servants. We cannot accept that.
So let me quickly.
I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war and on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war and on both sides. because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers. I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchess, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war on both sides because they make money. They're arms dealers.
Watch your fucking time. The fucking nonsense turn you into a fucking clown. Literally. You need to realize the lies in order to not perpetrate them. All believers are liars. They just don't know better. Literally. We all been programmed to be stupid. The question is, are you stupid? Because if you are a believer, you are stupid. But you was taught to be that way. You don't have to be stupid. You can finally think for yourself and use common sense for a change, to make a change. Wow. When you don't know who you are, you can make believe to be anything. Wow. The stupidity goes deep as long as you believe. The Democrat rats said the Democrat rats said that this protest was peaceful, but you got police cars on fire, and you have a police officer who went to the hospital because of getting injured by a rock coming through his windshield. But these protesters was peaceful. When? When?
I'll make it kind of easy. I was raised to tell the truth. I had seen the president up close for this fundraiser, and I was surprised. And so I feel as if there was a lot of profiles and cowardice in my party through all of that. And I was not proud of that, and I also believed I had to tell the truth.
Clooney just said his party's full of lying cowards, and he calls himself brave for telling the truth. Huh. I guess he's brave, because you're not allowed to tell the truth in this party, and if you do, they take you out. But the rest of the country didn't need Clooney to tell them Joe was toast. We knew it for years, and we don't need a permission slip from The Rock to tell the truth. Suddenly, all these Democrats want credit for telling the truth when the stakes were low. Bernie just came out and said his party's trash.
It's sad to say that when the Democrats had control of the Senate, they did virtually nothing for working people. I have to say that I'm a member of the Democratic Caucus as an independent, so I'm not going to lie to you and tell you otherwise. And since then, do I think the Democrats have been effective in rallying the American people in stopping Trump's moving toward oligarchy and authoritarianism? No, I don't.
Arndal just told the country, walk away from the Democrat Party and be an independent. But Bernie's just as big of a hypocrite as Clooney. Bernie never said any of this when Democrats were in power. Now he wants Chuck's head on the platter. MoveOn.org says it's time to move on from Schumer. They say their frustrations are at a boiling point, and if nothing changes, donors are ready to yank their funds out. Schumer can smell the coup coming.
Leader Schumer, are you feeling pressure to step down?
Look, I'm not stepping down. And let me just say this, Kristen. I knew when I cast my vote against against the government shutdown that there'd be a lot of controversy, and there was.
Chuck's wounded, the clock's ticking, and the Bernie bros smell blood. The progressives are primarying the old-timers. Watch.
Donald Trump warned us that there's a demand for our country piece by piece. And so many Democrats seem to tend to just sit back and let them. So I think it's time to drop the excuses and go with the story. I'm Helen Gonzalez, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois' United States.
That woman right there, Kat, she used to work at Media Matters. She used to clip things we said on Fox and try to get us all fired. Now she's running for Congress. This new generation gets going, it's going to get ugly.
The problem for Democrats right now is they're primaried by a bunch of Bernie Sanders, AOC-type Democrats. They're going to have a real hard problem flipping the House.
Democrats lost two big bets. That they'd always win the youth vote, and when the country got less white, Republicans would be finished. And they were dead wrong on both. And now their coalition's crippled. Ezra Klein, a big-time liberal thinker, says with the way the party's heading and with the number of Democrats moving out of blue states, Democrats could be out of power for the next 15 years. Everyone's moving to red states, boosting Republicans' electoral votes. So the Democrats could sweep the Rust Belt and still not hit 270. They lost the working class, and all their leaders aged out. A new poll asked Democrats who best reflects the core values of their party, and AOC came in first place. Wow. AOC is already taking shots at Schumer, saying we need a party that fights harder. And Fetterman told her to shut up. Fight harder, he says, a stunt that would have harmed millions and plunged us into chaos. We kept their government open. Deal with it. Oof. Fetterman just told a woman to deal with it. Are Democrats allowed to talk to each other like that? Now the media's not even getting along with the Democrats.
You're out there with AOC today. Because you're joining the Senate. Right now, we have, as I said, there's a whole lot of people. Okay, shut up. Actually, I got one last system. Well, I asked you. Okay, look, you want to do nonsense? Do nonsense. I don't want to go for this. I was going to say one more question about you. That's all. I didn't really ask you. What? Well, I mean, see, you understand.
Who storms out of an interview with him, comes back and sits down? What was that? You gotta commit. They want AOC to run against Schumer and knock him out, because at least AOC can get a crowd, even though it's basically the same crowd Bernie's been getting for 10 years. But some Democrats think she's the ticket.
Newsom is obviously setting up for a run for the presidency in 2028. And I'm not so sure that his current strategy is really going to work, because what he's doing is he's trying to appeal to the right, but what I see is people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are further left than politicians we've seen in the mainstream in modern American history, garnering so much support, breaking records with attendance at rallies. What the left may need right now is possibly somebody further to the left, not further to the right.
So the country's moving right, and Democrats think the way to win is to move left. Everyone fled California, and Democrats are like, I know, let's run the country like California.
I mean, this looks like game over, you know, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about. Taxes and regulations. I certainly been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state, you couldn't do it.
Democrats can't stop the things they want to stop or build the things they want to build. Do they have any ideas that are different than Donald Trump? Because saying, I don't like what he's doing is not an idea. Listen to what Democrats want to campaign on next year.
Well, we could eliminate all voter registration laws. See, when Democrats get in charge, we try to protect voting rights. We don't make voting easier. We didn't have voter pre-registration in 1787. We didn't have voter pre-registration in 1821. We only started having voter registration, generally speaking, after the Civil War. Why do you think that is?
Don't regulate who gets to vote. That's not even an idea. That's cheating. Politics is basically about getting people on your side. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. Patronage, persuasion, inspiration. Kid Rock is doing conversion therapy.
Kid Rock was here a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I want you to meet Trump. And he said, I'm going to take you to the White House. Well, now we're going to do that.
I think,
And like, there will be lots of people on the left who will be like, how dare you talk to this man?
Yeah.
You know, we're not playing this game that you mean girls play.
Yes.
We're like, oh, you know what? You can't sit at my lunch table because I'm just not talking to you. Not talking to you, you lost the election. Well, you think you have to talk to me?
Bill Maher, Gavin Newsom, Stephen A. They lost. And they want to talk to the winning team. This is how it happens. Once you start talking to the other side, you stop hating them because you see them as humans. And then you find out you have a lot in common. And the next thing you know, you're sleeping with the enemy. The Democrats have gone so far left that Gavin, Maher, these guys, they're just looking for a new home. It happened with Rogan, Tulsi, and RFK too. Republicans have this big, beautiful tent. Why don't you stay for a minute? Spend the night. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interview.
I'll start first, and then our city manager will go next and give you some.
The American dream cannot exist without racial injustice. Close quote. Tom, what should students understand about the United States?
First of all, they should understand something about the actual history of the United States instead of the propaganda. That's not likely to happen. If this is a problem extended beyond blacks or other low-income minorities, this longer year-long curse of anti-Semitism all over the country, and not anti-Semitism in words, but actually forcing violence and so forth. And that is something that's going to be very tough to get rid of. But I think it can be gotten rid of. But I think this taking the money from Colombia is a perfect first step. And Colombia is not the only one that's like this. They're the ones who got caught red-handed. And I think that if we stop thinking about these institutions as places that are so wonderful, have great people. Right now, the latest issue of the Chronicle of Higher Education is expressing outrage that the government dares to expect people to these institutions to live up to the law. I think it is long
for them to live up to the law. Thank you. The real question this 4th of July is not how we got here, but whether we'll still be here in 50 years. Nations do not last forever. Empires, even the mightiest, crumble when they are taken for granted. Rome fell, Britain's global dominance faded, the Soviet Union collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. America is not immune to the laws of history. We stand at a crossroads not because of external enemies, but because of choices we make or refuse to make within our own borders. The signs of decay are unmistakable. The question is whether we have the clarity to see them and the courage to act before it's too late. History is not a story of inevitable progress. Civilizations rise, we also fall when citizens and institutions grew complacent. The United States, born in rebellion against tyranny, was built on principles of individual liberty, limited government, and personal responsibility. Those principles required vigilance to maintain. Yet today we see a nation lulled into a false sense of permanence. We assume our wealth, our freedoms, and our global influence are guaranteed as if history owes us immortality. It does not. Consider the Roman Empire. At its height, it spanned continents, roads, aqueducts, marvels of engineering. But Rome did not fall because of barbarian invasions alone. It rotted from within, corruption, decadence, and a citizenry that traded self-reliance for bread and services. Are we so different? In 2024, the U.S. national debt surpassed $34 trillion, with interest payments alone projected to hit $1 trillion annually by 2030. We spend as if tomorrow is promised, borrowing against a future we may not have. What happens when a nation's leaders treat its treasury like a personal credit card? What happens when citizens demand more while producing less? Complacency is not just fiscal, it's cultural. We've grown accustomed to prosperity without understanding what sustains it. We celebrate our freedoms on days like today, but tolerate their erosion every other day of the year. If we cannot name the principles that made America exceptional, how can we defend them? And if we cannot defend them, why should we expect them to endure? No society survives without a shared moral framework. Yet we live in an age of moral relativism, where right and wrong are reduced to feelings, and feelings are elevated above facts. This is not an abstract problem. It has consequences. Look at our cities. In San Francisco, shoplifting has been effectively decriminalized, with thefts under $950 treated as minor offenses. In 2023, retail chains like Walgreens and Target closed stores in major cities, citing rampant theft and unsafe conditions. What does it say about a society that normalizes stealing while punishing those who try to stop it? This moral decay extends to our treatment of law enforcement. The 2020 riots, sparked by isolated incidents, morphed into a national campaign to demonize police. Funding efforts in cities like Minneapolis and Seattle led to predictable results. Violent crime surged. In Chicago, homicides rose by 50% from 2019 to 2022. Yet activists and politicians doubled down, blaming law enforcement rather than lawbreakers. What kind of society sympathizes with criminals while vilifying those who risk their lives to protect it? The answer is a society that has lost its ability to distinguish between justice and vengeance, between order and chaos. Moral relativism breeds lawlessness. When we excuse rioters who burn businesses, loot stores, and assault innocent people, we are not showing compassion. We are inviting anarchy. The 2020 riots caused over $2 billion in damages and costly civil unrest in U.S. history. Yet many excused it as protests. What happens when a nation calls destruction justice? It loses the moral clarity needed to survive. The erosion of merit is another wound we inflict on ourselves. A society that rewards effort and ability thrives. One that demands equal outcomes regardless of performance stagnates. Yet today we see a relentless push for forced equality where outcomes are engineered to ease rather than reflect reality. In 2024, major corporations like Google and Microsoft face lawsuits for lowering hiring standards to meet diversity quotas, resulting in less qualified candidates filling critical roles. The result? Declining innovation and productivity. What happens when a nation prioritizes feelings of inclusion over competence? It builds bridges that collapse, software that fails, and institutions that crumble under the weight of mediocrity. This obsession with forced equality undermines the very principles that drive progress. Meritocracy is not perfect, but it is the only system that allows centuries of achievement. When we replace it with quotas and preferences, we punish excellence and reward inadequacy. In 2023, a study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that firms adopting aggressive diversity policies saw a 12% drop in productivity over 5 years. Why? Because competence was sacrificed for a nation that cannot afford merit cannot compete, and a nation that cannot compete cannot survive. Worse, this push for forced equality grew to extent. When individuals are judged not by their actions but by their deep identity, trust erodes. In 2024, a survey showed that 65% of Americans believe affirmative action programs create unfair advantages rather than correct past wrongs. Yet elites doubled down, insisting that equality of outcome is justice. One kind of society tells its citizens that their hard work matters less than their skin and color, for example. It tells them that effort is futile, that merit is a myth, and that division is inevitable. The rise of demand for reparations and reverse discrimination further poisons the well of care. Proponents argue that historical norms justify redistributing wealth and opportunity today, often targeting groups who bear no personal responsibility for past injustice. In 2023, the California Reparations Task Force proposed payments of up to $1.2 billion per eligible resident, despite the state never having legalized slavery. Meanwhile, policies favoring certain groups in hiring education contracts, often at the expense of others based solely on race or ethnicity, create new forms of discrimination dressed up as justice. What happens when society punishes the innocent to atone for the sins of the dead? It breeds resentment, not reconciliation, and fractures the principle of individual accountability that holds the nation together. A nation's mind is shaped by its schools, and our schools are failing. Once places of rigorous debate, they now prioritize feelings over facts, indoctrination over inquiry. In 2023, students at elite universities like Harvard and Columbia rioted not to defend free speech, but to silence. They shouted down speakers, occupied buildings, and demanded safe spaces and ideas of this life. What kind of education produces adults who think tantrums are arguments? It's not education, it's infantilization. The National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that only 13% of 8th graders are proficient in U.S. history and 22% in civics. We are raising generations ignorant of the principles that justice. If young people cannot explain why the Constitution matters, how will they defend it? If they cannot distinguish between free speech and violence, how will they govern? The indoctrination of young people extends beyond politics and into personal realms, particularly around issues of gender and sexuality. The LGBTQ plus movement, once a call for individual rights, morphed into a crusade that demands conformity and hyper-sexualizing people. Schools now teach children as young as 5 about gender fluidity and sexual orientation, often without gender. In 2024, a California school district faced backlash for requiring teachers to use students' preferred pronouns, even when those pronouns contradict biological reality. What does it say about society that confuses children about their identity before they get tie their own shoes? This is not liberation, it's manipulation. The Trevor Project reported in 2023 that 60% of LGBTQ youth experience mental health challenges, often exacerbated by societal pressure, performance, through ever-shifting identity norms, Meanwhile, drag queen story hours and explicit sex education curricula proliferate, exposing children to adult themes under the guise of inclusivity. Why are we sexualizing children instead of protecting their innocence? The answer lies in an ideology that prioritizes adult agendas over childhood development, indoctrinating the young to serve as pawns in a cultural war. This indoctrination fuels a broader crisis, the rise of anti-Western sentiment among our own youth. Many young Americans educated in schools that vilified English history view the West as the root of all evil. In 2024, campus protests at UCLA and NYU saw students chanting slogans that denounced America as imperialist and oppressive, while praising regimes that imprisoned dissenters. A Gallup poll from the same year found that only 45% of Americans under 30 are proud to be American, down from 85% 2 decades ago. What happens when a nation's youth reject the very principles of liberty, reason, and individual rights? That's cool. This anti-Western fervor is not born from critical thinking of a victim. Students are taught to see their country through the lens of duty, not gratitude. They are told that Western civilization is defined by slavery and conquest, not by the abolition of slavery or the invention of the printing press, electricity, and modern medicine. They are not taught that the West, for all its flaws, lifted billions out of poverty through markets and innovation. South Korea, a war-torn nation in the 1950s, became an economic powerhouse by embracing Western principles of trade and liberty. Yet our youth are taught to despise the system that made such progress possible. Why do we allow this self-loathing to fester? A nation that hates itself cannot stand.
Bullshit!
This intellectual decay. Dissenters are not debated, they are ostracized. Professors, journalists, and ordinary citizens lose jobs, reputations, and livelihoods for questioning prevailing dogmas.
I hate bullshit, boy. That was straight bullshit. That was straight bullshit. Boy, I hate bullshit. That was straight bullshit.
Diversity policies on an internal
That
forum.
was straight bullshit. I pressed that fucking thing to open way before I hit the fucking ground. Straight fucking bullshit. I ain't mad at that, the mad rhythms. I know I'm a bad motherfucker.
But today it is a leviathan. In 2023, federal spending reached $6.1 trillion, nearly 25% of GDP, with deficits exceeding $1.7 trillion. Entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare, while valuable, are on a path to insolvency. The Congressional Budget Office projects that by 2035, these programs will consume over half the federal budget. Yet, politicians propose new entitlements, new college, universal health care, guaranteed income, without explaining how they work. What happens when a government promises everything to everyone? It bankrupts itself and its people. Inflation is the
Hi, what do you need? You got it.
In 2022, inflation hit a 40-year high of 9.1%, eroded wages and savings. The Federal Reserve printed trillions to fund government spending, diluting the dollar's value. Who suffers most? Not the wealthy, who hold assets that appreciate. It's the working family, the retiree on a fixed income, the small business owner struggling to pay rent. Government overreach doesn't just waste money, it destroys lives. Immigration built America, but only because immigrants embraced its values. Today, mass immigration without assimilation threatens national cohesion. In 2023, over 2.5 million migrants crossed the southern border. Many were released into the country without vetting. In cities like New York and Chicago, local resources are strained to provide shelter, health care, and schooling for newcomers who often do not speak the language or share the cultural norms. What happens when a nation opens its doors but forgets to teach those who enter what it means to be American? Worse, some immigrants bring ideologies hostile to the West. In 2024, protests in major cities featured chants of death to America and displays of flags of authoritarian regimes. These are not isolated incidents, but symptoms of a deeper failure. A nation that does not demand loyalty to its principles invites division. Look at Sweden, where unassimilated immigrant enclaves have fueled crime rates so high that police struggle to maintain order. In 2022, Sweden's homicide rate hit a 20-year peak, largely driven by gang violence in immigrant-heavy areas. Is this the future we want for America? A nation's future depends on its children, yet we are not having them. In 2023, the U.S. birth rate fell to 1.6 children per woman, below the replacement level of 2.1. Marriage rates are at historic lows, with only 6.1 marriages per 1,000 people in 2022. The family, the bedrock of any society, is eroding. Single-parent households, which now account for 30% of U.S. children, correlate with higher poverty, crime, and educational failure. What happens when a society stops valuing the institution that raises its next generation? This is not just a demographic problem, it's a cultural one. We glorify self-fulfillment over sacrifice, instant gratification over long-term commitment. Young people are told that marriage and parenthood are burdens, not blessings. Yet every civilization that failed to reproduce itself eventually disappeared. Are we so arrogant as to think we're exempt? The media, once a guardian of truth, has become an agent of manipulation. In 2024, major outlets downplayed riots in Los Angeles and Portland, calling them mostly peaceful, while businesses burned. They amplified narratives that divide race against race, class against class, while ignoring inconvenient facts. When a 2023 study showed that violent crime was rising in 70% of major U.S. cities, it was barely covered. Why? Because it didn't fit the preferred story. This is not journalism, it's activism. The media gaslights the public, insisting we ignore what we see with our own eyes. When shoplifting is called economic justice, when riots are called protests, when dissent is called hate, we lose the ability to reason together. A nation that cannot agree on basic facts cannot govern itself. What happens when the fourth estate becomes the fifth colony? America is not alone in its decline. Look across the West. In the UK, knife crime in London surged by 20% from 2021 to 2023, fueled by lax policing and cultural fragmentation. Sweden, once a model of social cohesion, now grapples with no-go zones and grenade attacks. These are not random events. They are symptoms of societal softness, ideological dogma, and political cowardice. The West is abandoning the principles that made it strong: reason, liberty, and accountability. The Rome's fall took centuries, but the warning signs were clear long before the end. Leaders ignored them, citizens ignored them. Are we doing the same? The West's decline is not inevitable, but it is likely to be
I'm playing two characters.
failure, punish success, and confuse emotion with truth. Is there still time to reverse course? Or have we passed the point of no return? I am not an optimist, nor a pessimist, but agreeable.
Okay, we got two teams. Split up and hit your objectives. I'm setting up a healthy atmosphere of
We must ask
competitiveness.
ourselves,
Here's
what
that.
kind of country are we looking to our children to graduate? A nation that cannot enforce its laws, balance its books, and
Doc
teach
team,
its young
Reshkovsky's car is part of a
is
shipment
not a
headed
nation
out into
with
the
a
Pacific
future.
any
Can a
day now.
civilization that
These guys are
comes with
professional
success
thieves with money at
reward
stake, so
lawlessness
don't
and
expect a walk
confuse
in
the
Mirror
emotion with
Park.
truths about our own? Evidence suggested. Look at the data. Rising crime, ballooning debt, falling birthrates, fractured communities, and a youth taught to despise their own heritage. These are not opinions. They are facts. Facts do not bend to our wishes. What happens when a nation forgets why it was founded in the first place? America was built on the idea of individual, not government.
Not in God we trust, and we trust in us.
And that freedom requires responsibility.
That's bullshit.
We abandon America itself. This 4th of July, we must do more to wave flags and light fireworks. We must confront the truth through the voice. We must demand schools that teach reason, not ideology, and protect our children from indoctrination. We must insist on leaders who prioritize merit over quotas, fairness over reparations, and the nation's survival over their own re-election. We must restore the family as the cornerstone of society. We must enforce laws, secure borders, and defend the principles that made America a beacon to the world. There is no guarantee we will succeed. History is littered
Looks
with
like you're almost at the
failed
cargo ship.
people,
Get
but
on
there
board
is
and
a
climb the
path forward.
stack and access the container with the
It
card in it.
begins with
Then bring
clarity.
the card to my people
Clarity
and
about
get it
our
out of the country.
values, our
The car's
challenges,
a
and
late
our
50s
responsibilities.
Lamborghini
We
Casio.
cannot
Rich Cosby
afford
says
to
it's a
be a
classic.
nation of
I call
sleepwalkers,
leverage. You're going to
drifting
think it's
toward
a pain in the
collapse,
ass.
while
Look
celebrating
out for
our
other people
own
on the ship.
ignorance.
You don't want to start a
So the
fight with
question
them
is
until
not
you
whether
have to.
America can
The car's in
survive
a
to its
locked container at the
250th
top of the
birthday. The
stack.
question is
You'll need to
whether we
climb up there
deserve
and shoot
to.
open the lock.
Let us act as
Top
if
of the
our
stack.
future
Climb up there and get the
because
card.
it does.
Gonna do a whole hour. Yeah, this is going in.
Today, the Senate just passed a big bill to affect the House to be voted this week. How the hell can you carry out your mission? So that's one thing.
Well, look, House needs to get that done ASAP. What that bill is going to do for us is going to be amazing. It's going to give us more resources. We can hire more agents and more law enforcement agents on the ground to look for public safety threats and national security threats. That remains our priority. It's going to give us more detection capability. We need more beds. Now, Alligator, Alcatraz, some there's a few thousand beds, but right now we need every bed we can get. Before the Florida facility came up, we only had 1,800 gallons of bed. We were filled in less than 2 days. So we're already full after 8,000. So we need that to build thousands of more beds that we're going to need because I mentioned the other day we got over 600,000 illegal aliens from criminal convictions walking streets. We need more bed space. We need more agents to arrest them. We need more beds for home. We need more transportation contracts to remove from the country. So this bill is going to give us the resources we need to do more great things.
Yeah, thank you. I want to pivot to sanctuary cities because that's in the news right now too. DOJ is suing Los Angeles. The U.S. mayoral candidate came out and said that if he is elected, that he's going to resist ICE efforts in the city. What's your reaction to that?
Well, thank God we're seeing sanctuary cities. We're sanctuary for criminal policy. As far as there's the New York City that says he's going to shut ICE down, and I thought, good luck with that. Yeah, it's not ICE. Matter of fact, we're going to double down, triple down. And the reason why we're doing it, not because anyone cares, because we know we got a problem in New York City. We know they're releasing public safety threats, illegal aliens to the community every day. We know they're releasing illegal alien security threats to the community every day. So we know we have a problem. We got to send more resources. There's a right
You got it. Once you're sure they're not following, bring it in. Okay, now bring the car to my driver. It should be obvious, but we need this car in good shape to get to Rishkovsky. It's meant to be priceless. And our man's imminent place on the FIB most wanted list is going to make him ineligible to make insurance claims. You understand? Look after it.
We want brothers on the community. We want brothers on the website. We want fighters. And they're not going to stop us. So if he says he's going to push back,
Hope you're looking after his car. There's only so much damage we can blame on the export crew. Bloodstains, bullet holes, burn marks, they'll go under general wear and tear. Anything free is going to be a problem. Okay, looks like they're sending people after the casco. You need to drop these guys before you bring the car back. Drop as in ice them, or drop as in lose them. I don't mind.
For 6 presidents, around the way that every steps to secure the border. Steps to secure the border. They do very good at it. But President Trump's been president success, and he came back along. We signed city protective laws that we were effective during city fire. We made it excellent. Fair share contributions and country readiness to go to law. So all those things that we knew were we put back in place. But we're really successful. Most folks are out Joe Biden can do the same thing. It's law, for instance, one law to do it. If you come to a border illegally, you want to proper documentation to enter it, the law says you shall be detained. Not me, not thinking about, not police and NGO, you shall be detained. That's exactly what we do. We detain and we want.
The station team have the schedule. Where are you at with that car? I was worried about it taking damage. Now I'm worried about how many miles it'll have on the clock. Plot a course to my driver and follow it quick. Maybe one day you'll file a few patents, head up some research projects, bring that knowledge into the boardroom, and be able to afford a car like this yourself. Until that day comes, don't think about driving around like you own it, okay? Pronto, people.
It's something that like to do a large extent. Now, I wonder if that exchange of geopolitical very yeah.
It's slowly got the change software. And every secure ability, every simple gets out of the control. Not chasing back the regulated from the hospital and stealing people's assets. The cartels are getting on all the price. That's where those people are guns or guns, right? So we're bankrupting slowly. And they're taking to maritime, what we understand getting in Florida. But we've increased Navy ships, we've increased Coast Guard, we've increased CBP, everything. So we're not coming there either. So we got to put it at the most secure border in the station. The intelligence reports say that cartels are posting on in Europe. It's on there. It's Egypt. So we're going to keep putting it. Matter of fact, we took it just last week. That one seems like a drop. I have. So what's the secure border means? That's that the blood stuff on base in the United States. That's sex trafficking women and children. That's the respect to terrorist crossing our border. The secure border saves lives and protects the country. And we got the most secure border ever. In the history of this nation, the border should not be.
Yeah, the whole thing was not built for so long. We just had a course where agents that she spoke to said that they would like to resource various money. With the passage of the bill, and spoke to those resources coming, can they expect an extra allocation there?
Absolutely, great question. Yes. The numbers on board, some of the contracts, which have no ability to go 90%. So we can go, it's less than 30%. But no, we don't take look at it. I still don't. So it's like a person, but there's always especially now, it's fun. Both more resources in the world, especially our technology. There's thousands and thousands of people. And she got the more boots on the ground. You're getting more technology, everything is getting control. So there's places in San Diego where you can get across that river. And we urge you resource that we stop. That's why we're working very closely with the Canadian border forces, the Canadian mounted police, and their federal government. They're going to increase enforcement efforts north of the border. We're going to vastly increase enforcement efforts somewhere in the border to stop cross-border
Almost there. My driver's been mainlining junk energy drinks and downloading soft rock classics for a 40-hour drive to Central America. She'd really appreciate it if you hurried up and sent her on her way.
Sorry, you're turning the CDP home. So they went from being an actual, what's the thing we're going to that also included assistance, financial assistance to get people voluntarily self-report.
Paid two.
Out.
Kara,
I'm taking over.
helped you finish that little mission. They almost fucked over me though. They almost killed me. She called for the call.
Well done. She's on the road. But now you gotta wait until the other teams deliver the schedule. Let's just hope they do it. Because it's back to the start. Do not pass go if they don't.
Which places a bar gets you coming back from anywhere from 5 years to 20 years to never. You leave it on go, you give yourself an opportunity to come back on your visa, visa.
There we go.
If you have your citizen child, they can petition for you. Relative of your citizen. Give yourself a legal option to come back. I think the more enforcement operations you see, the more self-enforcement states that you see it. we think that the number overall, there's a lot of people leaving the country who aren't going through the system of CBP on that. Where we got a lot of intelligence reports that show